Hello, welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. This is week 6 of the Bernat blanket stitch along with our friends from JOANN.com. This is the pièce de résistance for the blanket, in my opinion. We get to make those little extras that we will attach to our blanket to really make it pop. I'm talking about tassels and pom-poms. We're also going to add a little bit of fringe to the edge of our blanket together, and that will really just tie it all in together. You will love these little additions to your blanket that you have just spent 5 weeks making. Over the last 5 weeks, we've learned a lot of different stitches that you can now add to your knitter's toolbox. Today, we're going to learn how to make tassels and pom-poms in multiples so that way they are easier for you to make in the future and add to some of your future projects. I can't wait to show you how all of these are constructed. So let's go ahead and see what colors we need for this week's video. For this week's video, you will need your color D and your color A. Along with these colors, you're going to want some extra worsted weight yarn that is roughly the same color as your color A. This is obviously not the same color, but I'm going to use a different color for demonstration purposes so you can see how we're going to use that. You'll also need a piece of cardboard that's approximately 5 inches. You will need a tape measure, and last but certainly not least, a good pair of scissors to be able to cut all that yarn as we make the tassels and the pom-poms. Once you have your materials, go ahead and get that pattern. I've put a link in the video description box right below this video. While you're down there, smash that like button, as my kids say, so that other people know you enjoyed this video. Your blanket is complete. Let's add those finishing touches. I'm ready to go if you are. Let's start off with our fringe. You want to begin with your color D, and you want to pull out and cut 12-inch lengths of yarn. Once you have those 12-inch lengths of yarn, grab 2 of them and place them together and fold them in half. Then grab your finished blanket and either the cast on edge or the bind off edge, it doesn't matter. We're going to use this little swatch here as an example. So this would be the cast on edge with the wrong side facing you, okay? Wrong side facing you. Put the folded fringe together on the opposite side, and where you want to apply the fringe, let's start it out here first. You want to go in with your knitting needle, grab that center bit, okay? And then we're going to pull that center bit through the knitting and pull that up. So I have my center right here. I'm going to fold it over the edge of my blanket and grasp the tails and then pull the tails through that center bit. See that? By having the wrong side facing me, that allows that really nice crisp center bit that makes it look nice and clean up here on the right side. If using the knitting needles is a little bit difficult, you could always use a crochet hook as well. Grab your 2 strands of fringe, fold them in half, wrong side of your blanket facing you, take your crochet hook and place it through the area you want to add your fringe. Put the center of the fringe along the throat of the crochet hook and pull that up and through. Now all you need to do is go through that center, grab the tails, pull those through, and voila, you have some pretty fringe on the opposite side. You will apply this fringe along both the bind off edge and the cast on edge, evenly spaced out. Now your blanket looks a little bit more finished, doesn't it? Okay, let's add that little bit of extra to the blanket. Let's start off with the tassels. With your color A and your 5-inch piece of cardboard, let's go ahead and wrap the yarn around the cardboard 15 times. I put a little slit in my cardboard here just to grab the yarn and keep it in place, and then I can wrap it around 15 times. There's 15. I can go ahead and snip my yarn. Now I want to secure this at one end. So I will go ahead and I'm going to grab a length of yarn and I'm going to pull it through my cardboard here. And I'm just going to wiggle this up to the top and give it a nice tie. Now I want this to be nice and secure, so what I like to do is I'll tie it like that once, and then on the second one, you'll notice I wrap it around twice before I give it a pull. So I've secured that. I can remove this from the cardboard. At the end that has not the tie part, at the end down here that is still together, I want to cut that apart. Okay. Now I'm going to take another piece of the blanket yarn and I want to tie it about 1 inch from that top, or 2.5 centimeters. So I'm going to place this just like so. And again, give it a tie about 1 inch from the top. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, just approximately 1 inch. And now what I want to do is I want to wrap this yarn around that area that I just tied, okay? And what that will do is it gives it a nice little, it's like a necklace around the throat of the tassel, so to speak, okay? Once that's tied around, what I like to do is I will take a tapestry needle or a crochet hook, and I'm going to use the crochet hook first. I'm going to go just up, I'm up underneath what I just wrapped, and I'm just going to pull the tails of the yarn I just wrapped down through that wrap. See what I'm doing here? Okay, so it pulls it down through the wrap. So it's nice and secure now, okay? So I have a nice tassel all completed. I can even it all out. And if I need to go back and even any section, I can do that. But for the most part, get all the fuzz away, my tassel is complete. So that's how you would make a tassel using a piece of cardboard. Pretty easy, right? Now, what about making a pom-pom using just your fingers? Let me show you how to do that. Okay, when we make the pom-pom, you want to make sure you have your worsted weight yarn handy. And we're still using our color A. And we're going to wrap yarn around 3 fingers approximately 40 times. And I want to remind you, the more you wrap, the fuller your pom-pom is going to be. So make sure you are generous with your wrapping if you decide to not count. Err on the side of too many versus too few. Once you've wrapped 40 times, go ahead and take your extra yarn that you have here, and we are going to wrap it around these wraps. So I'm going to remove my hand from the center. I'm going to place this directly onto my worsted weight yarn, and then I will tie the yarn around the center of my wrapped Bernat blanket yarn. So this again is just a worsted weight yarn. It's supposed to be the same color as the yarn you're using for the pom, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing, so I'm using a different color. I'm giving it a good pull. What I like to do when I make pom-poms, I will rotate this over and then I will tie it again on the opposite side. It just pulls it in even more snug, and then I turn it one more time. And I will tie this one using that surgical knot I mentioned, where I wrap it around the center twice before I give it a good pull. I want to leave this length of yarn nice and long because this is what I will use to attach this pom-pom to the blanket. Now that we have this nice and secure, what we are going to do is cut these ends open. and then shape our pom-pom so that we can get it to look nice like that. So I'm going to just go ahead and start cutting. Once you have all of those pieces cut open, kind of feel around. You might feel a couple that you might have missed, but once they're all cut open, you should then be able to grasp the yarn you used to tie it together and give the pom-pom a nice little shake. You're gonna have fuzz everywhere. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have fuzz everywhere. Now what I want to do is I want to shape my pom-pom. So I simply just go around, and you can make your pom-pom as crazy or as uniform as you wish, but you just go around and shape it. And then once it's all done, you'll have a nice pom-pom. Okay, so if you have no tools or anything else to make your pom-poms, this is a great way to just use your fingers and then do some shaping, okay? Make some pom-poms just like that. Okay, now that I've shown you how to make the fringe, the tassels, and the pom-poms using very simple tools, either your fingers or a piece of cardboard, I want to show you a new tool on the market called the Pom Tassel Maker. It makes the process of making multiple pom-poms or tassels very easy because you can make many at the same time. So as you're making all of these pieces for your blanket, using this tool makes it quick and easy. Not to mention, it's super affordable. Let me show you. The Pom Tassel Maker comes in 3 sizing parts and 2 pegs. What you need to do here is decide how large you want your pom or tassels. So we want to use these pegs either in this outside edge out here to go this distance, once those fit up together, or we could move the peg in to be a smaller distance apart. Or, just like a puzzle piece, if we wanted it to be even larger, we could put those together just like so, and move this peg out here just like so. At this distance, it is 12 inches. At this distance, it is 10 inches. Pretty convenient, right? So knowing what we know about the fringe, if we were to put our pegs at 12 inches, theoretically, we'd be able to wrap our yarn around these pegs just so that the yarn was one on top of the other, cut it at either side, and we'd have our 12 inches of fringe, right? Super easy. The other thing here is we know these are 12 inches. So if I move this in at 10 inches, if we wrap our yarn around this 15 times, and imagine the center part is where we're going to cut it apart, the remaining bit will be our tassel. Let me show you what I mean here. To make a tassel, we start off by cutting a length of yarn that we can put through the hole right here in the peg. This length of yarn acts as the hang for the tassel. See how it comes through right there? So I just want to thread that through and just let it be there, okay? And I could do the same thing for the opposite side. Let me get a length of yarn here and thread it through. So that way we can make 2 tassels at the same time. Here it is, and I'll let that hang out there. Now I'm ready to go ahead and wrap around my pegs. So I will grab my yarn, and I like to start off with a slip knot, just makes me happier. So I start off with a slip knot, and I place that directly onto one of the pegs. Now it's a simple matter of just wrapping around these pegs, okay? So I know I'm out of frame. I'm trying to do it as best I can, but I'm just wrapping around the peg. If you want your tassels to all be uniform, you will want to count the number of wraps you do around the peg. At the end here, I like to end with another slip knot. So I make a slip knot at this end and I put it at the opposite end that I started with, okay? So I'm gonna pull this free just so that it's not all caught up. I don't want to pull it out. Just want to make sure, oop, I just did pull it out. See, you want to be very careful. So I'm going to put that part in. Make sure it's in there. There we go. And I want to pull this part out. There we are. Okay, so now we have this nice little tool here with some wraps around these pegs. What do we do next? Well, think of this entire piece here as 2 tassels. We want to wrap around our throat, the necklace around the throat right here, and we want to do the necklace around the throat right here. So I'm going to get some yarn. I'm going to cut this one off. I'm going to get a nice length of yarn here. I'm going to thread it through. And I will tie it right up here around the throat of the tassel, right? So I'm going to tie it. I'm going to tie it one more time because I like to double tie my items. And more often than not, I will end up using cotton thread to do this because I feel like it's more secure. All right, so I tied it. And I'm going to leave that one there because I will take this and I will be wrapping it around this, but I'm going to leave it like that for right now. Let's do the same on the opposite side. Again, I like to tie it twice, just makes a nice knot. All right, so I have both of the throats wrapped. Now what I can do is go ahead and at the center portion of this, I can cut it right in half and I will have 2 tassels. So the center bit is right here. Let's cut this apart. Voila, look at that, 2 tassels. So half of my work is done, right? Now what I want to do is when I take this peg out, I want to make sure that this gray piece does not fall out. So I'm going to hold it and just pull that out. I'll set this down. Have the same thing over here. I'm going to just pinch that so it doesn't go anywhere. Pull this out. Set that down. I no longer need this piece of the Pom Tassel Maker, so I can set that aside. And we'll do 1 tassel at a time, okay? So I can go ahead and remove this peg, but I don't want this string to fall out, right? So I'm going to hold one end. So when I remove the peg, the string is still there. See that? I can now go ahead and take this string, pull it up tight. I can tie it. I can do whatever I want. But this is the part that would hang from whatever I wanted to add this to. In this example, it would be the blanket. So if you are using different thread, you want to make sure that it is the same color so that way it can blend in with your blanket. But see how that's all tied up right there at the top of your tassel? Now we have to deal with the throat part, the necklace, right? So let's do that now. Let's see, what's the best way? I'm right-handed, so I'm going to wrap it right-handed because it just makes it easier for me. And I'm literally just wrapping it around. Pretty easy. This was the start. I'm going to tuck that down. And I'm going to use my crochet hook again because that worked so well the first time. I'm just going underneath. You see, I'm just underneath those wraps. I'm going to grab the length, the extra length, and just pull those through. Now I have the tassels all the same length. I don't have a lot of extra trimming except the throat I had. And look at that as I throw it across. I just made a tassel in no time. And not only did I make one, I can do the same thing right here on a second one. Let's do this. Give this a nice tight knot. Again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to wrap this with my right hand. Take my crochet hook, I'm going to go underneath those wraps. It's really easy to do it this way with the Bernat blanket yarn because it's so thick it just blends in. can straighten out any of the strings you might have here. The only tidying up I have is the extra length from my wrapping. And would you look at that, in no time at all, I just made 2 of the tassels I need. They're nice and thick, they're uniform, and they're fabulous. Pretty cool, right? I can do the same thing for Pom Pom. For Pom Poms, you don't need to put anything down the center of the pegs. We will start off with the slip knot and place that on our peg. And then for Pom Poms, we want to make sure that we do as many wraps as we possibly can. And remember, for Pom Poms, the more you wrap, the more full your Pom Pom will be. So don't be shy as you're wrapping around the pegs for the Pom Pom as the yarn creeps up on me, because the more wraps you make, the fuller it will be. Okay, I think that is probably enough. That's a whole lot there. And it's starting to have my piece bow a little bit, but that's okay. That's perfectly normal. I will once again create my slip knot here. Whoops, I just made a complete knot. Let me make a slip knot and add it to this side. All right, so here I am. I could make 2 tassels again if I wanted to, right? I just have to put my string down my pegs. But I'm gonna make 2 Pom Poms. So let's think of it this way. If the center of the piece is right here, I want to make sure I take my extra length of yarn here, that is a nice strong worsted weight yarn, and I will tie it around this part and this part. I could have prepped my gadget here at the start with my lengths of yarn and placed them in those grooves right there. I didn't do that here at the start because I knew I was going to be picking up my piece and really wrapping it around. I didn't want them to fall out. So that's why I didn't do that. But these grooves here are available for you to preset where your string is going to go, okay? So what I will do, I'm going to grab a nice length of yarn. This is a good strong acrylic yarn, and if this is center, I'm going to place it, let me get it on the opposite side, just pulling it through. I can grab it, there we are. Okay, this is center. I'm going to pull this up. And I just want to make sure that my yarn is going approximately halfway from this point to where I plan on cutting it there. Does that make sense? So I want to tie it. Again, I like to tie it double, so I will tie it once, and then I feed the yarn through the bottom. So the tail that's on this side, on my outside, I will feed that through this over here, and this tail I will feed through to the opposite side. And by doing this, watch what happens. I don't need fingers or anything. I can just pull this really snug, and when I come back up to tie another knot, it stays in place for me. I don't have to worry about it coming undone. And then on my second tie, that's when I wrap it twice around the knot portion and give it a tug. Doing it like this will make it so that your pom-poms don't fall apart. I promise. I've never had a pom-pom fall apart because I do it this way. And like I said, usually I use a cotton thread because it's really strong. All right, so that's your halfway. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. Remember, we're making 2 pom-poms, so we gotta have 2 center sections. All right, guys. So we have the centers of our poms in place. Now we have to cut this apart. And I'm going to preface this with something. Do not take your scissors and take a big old hunk just like this and start cutting, because it will make more work for you in the end. Take your time, find the halfway point, and cut in little snippets. Just take it a little bit at a time and cut. It makes it so that the fiber or the fabric or the yarn or whatever you want to call it is allowed to relax a little bit. And as you're cutting, it just makes the stitches more uniform, and it'll make it so that you have less work shaping your pom-pom later. So as you're cutting it apart, take it in sections. Trust me on this, Okay, I've used this literally since it was just a prototype, so this is the best way to do it. All right. Okay, so once you do that, you can take the pegs out, just like that. I don't need this piece anymore. I can set it aside. I'm going to have a lot more fuzz. I don't know why I'm worried about it. And I have my center tied, so it should not come undone. All I need to do now is take my peg out from this side, and I want to cut this apart. Again, I'm going to do it in little sections, so that way it does not cause more work for me in the end to get the shape of my pom-pom. Okay, so it's all apart. This is all apart. You guys ready for the magic? This is like the best thing ever. So you grab the two strands that are remaining from where you tied it together, pinch them, fluff your pom-pom out. Look at how pretty and uniform that is already without doing any sort of shaping. Like if I just wanted sort of like a floofy, raggedy looking pom-pom, that is perfect. I don't even have to do anything else to it. Like it's absolutely perfect. If I wanted to do some shaping though, I absolutely could with minimal work, a lot less waste of the yarn, and it is brilliant. The best thing is I have one more that I can make here in no time. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna leave all the fuzz. Let's take this one off now. Ta-da! And let's trim it up. Or cut it apart, I guess. We're not trimming, we're just cutting it apart. All right, so that is all apart. Let's watch the magic happen because it's so cool. Can be like, I watched a magic show with Marley. They'll be like, what? All right, here we go. I'm holding the tails. Give it a shake. Once again, I have a pom-pom that, I mean, let's put it this way. The only one I would trim is that long one right there. That was my slip knot. I think that's brilliant and it's perfect. And in no time, I just made two lovely pom-poms, two lovely tassels with one tool. It is such a great tool. It's called the Pom Tassel Maker. I'll put a link in the video description box for it. You will find it so helpful whenever you're working on projects where you have to make multiple pom-poms or tassels, or even fringe. Like I mentioned, being able to wrap around those pegs to get equal lengths of fringe makes it so easy and convenient. All right, so once you have added your fringe, made your tassels, and made your pom-poms, you're gonna follow the instructions and place the tassels in the week 4 section, and you're gonna place the pom-poms in the week 2 section. And look at the image. I'm gonna pop it up right here. And you can look at this image and see exactly where you're supposed to place your tassels and your pom-poms. Simply tie them right directly onto your blanket. All right, guys, that's it. Isn't that cool? I am so in love with the Pom Tassel Maker. I can't even begin to tell you. The first time I was asked to use it and do a demonstration of it, I just was like, oh yes, this is a game changer, because many times I would avoid projects that had a lot of tassels or a lot of pom-poms because I didn't want to spend a lot of time making them, but this makes it so easy. You can also make more than just 2 pom-poms on this. You can make multiple pom-poms, but there's instructions fully included with the Pom Tassel Maker if you want to check that out. But if not, the good old piece of styrofoam or your fingers work just as well. You can do that, totally up to you. I have so enjoyed this stitch along with you guys. It has been such a joy using Bernat blanket yarn. Believe it or not, it's the first time I've ever used it. And it was such a treat to be able to knit with it and learn some fun stitches. I had never done a couple of those stitch patterns before, so even I was learning along with you, and it was a lot of fun. Not to mention, I love the colors of the sample blanket that I was able to use. The swatch that I was making along with you guys, I turned it into a cowl. Do you want to see it? Oh, all right. I'm going to show it to you. Are you ready? All right, guys, here's my swatch. I have turned it into a cowl. I added a single crochet trim around both sides, and then I sewed up the bind off edge to my cast on edge, and I did a really cool seam here with a nice bold blue, so that way it looks like it was on purpose. I couldn't let this go to waste. I had to have something nice with it, and seriously, I'm in love with this. I think it will look great with some tassels or pom-poms attached, right? Let's see, it would go in this section for the tassel. It's so much fun. This was a lot of fun to make, this particular cowl that I made along with you as you're making your blanket. It was a real treat. A nice surprise. I didn't expect that I would be able to use up the swatch, but I did. I love it. It will go perfectly with my winter coat. That brings us to the end of our stitch along, you guys. I know, all good things must come to an end. If you've enjoyed this stitch along, go ahead and check out some of the previous ones that are available with our friends at JOANN.com. You won't be disappointed in those as well. And as you are finishing up your blankets, make sure you're still sharing with us, either in the Facebook group or on Instagram or just in general on social media. Use hashtag handmadewithjoann or hashtag MarleyBird. That way I can come and see all of your beautiful work and smash your like button. It has been a real treat being able to teach you through these last 6 weeks, and I hope you have learned something along the way. I'm Marley Bird. This is the Marley Bird YouTube channel, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye, everybody.